It begins in a glance. She doesn't see you as you are. She sees the possibility, the potential version she's already created in her mind. You feel something in her eyes, a spark of anticipation, maybe hunger, maybe hope. You believe you're being truly observed, but the truth is far more nuanced. She's measuring, calculating, scanning you like a blank canvas waiting for her brush. Yet the masterpiece she intends to paint isn't your painting at all. It's her projection, the story she's been rehearsing in her mind for years. Carl Jung dedicated his life to exploring the unconscious, the hidden realm that shapes our feelings, decisions, behaviors. Within that shadowed territory, Jung discovered a profound truth about human relationships, especially those involving women. Love isn't purely directed toward who you are. It often flows toward who they imagine you could be. And the frightening twist: most don't realize they're in love with a fantasy, not a person. When she looks at you, she might think she's choosing, but she's actually selecting the actor for her private script. And when the act fails to convince, she won't rewrite the story. She'll replace the actor. Jung coined this inner masculine image in women the animus. If it's immature or unchecked, it becomes a tyrant, pushing women to chase danger, reject kindness, moralize without empathy. It's not seductively dark, but spiritually possessive. She stops responding authentically and begins acting out the parts of her unconscious drama. Men fall hard into the trap because nobody shows them how to tell the difference between illusion and reality. They confuse desire with understanding, praise with intimacy. When she says you're different, you believe it. But perhaps you're just a more convincing pretender than the last. Then, when the mask cracks, you're left hollowed out, wondering where you failed. You didn't fail as a man. You failed at being someone you were never meant to be. Jung called the escape from this endless theatrical cycle individuation, the process of reclaiming your whole self. This doesn't come with applause or trophies. It's a solitary, painful task. Most men never even begin. They're trained by culture, family, friends to chase affection like it's a currency. They seek respect, validation, love, external validations that depend on someone else's gaze. And as long as they dance for that crowd, they're cast aside the moment interest wanes. Individuation is brutal. Once you begin, there's no turning back. You dig into the wounds you've hidden: insecurity, fear of abandonment, shame. You stop blaming her for not seeing you, because you've decided to see yourself. And here's Jung's radical insight. A man becomes a man when he chooses himself, not when he's chosen. When you stop earning your worth through someone else's love and start owning it, you free yourself from projection's control. A man who's met his unconscious isn't swayed by illusion. He's not a character in someone else's fairy tale. He's the author of his own story. He stands on stage as himself, not as the version someone else needs him to be. What's tragic, Jung noted, is that modern men are less heartbroken by rejection than willing heartbreakers. They willingly adapt, mold, become shapeless for acceptance. They call it compromise. They call it partnership. They call it love. Jung called it betrayal of self. It's bending softer, nodding harder, hiding more of who you are until you vanish behind the mask. And women sense it deeply. Attraction, Jung taught, isn't built on comfort. It's built on mystery. It's fueled by challenge, unpredictability, depth. When you dissolve into predictability, when you give everything, reveal everything, leave nothing hidden, attraction doesn't grow. It shrivels. You don't become more lovable by being fully known. You become less, invisible. And yet, so many men cling to visibility because being faked is less terrifying than being alone. You'd rather be a puppet than face the silence that answers when approval stops. Most will stay trapped in performance because the journey inward is grueling. It demands you die to the version of yourself that needs her to survive. Individuation is lonely. Jung's patients screamed when faced with their shadow, that dark place of rejected self. Society demands women be wholly embraced, emotional, intuitive, complete. Jung warned this makes them vulnerable to unconscious matchmakers like the animus, the inner voice of masculine authority that isn't them, yet demands to be. If they don't integrate it, they project unreal standards onto men, standards no man can meet. Yet many men offer themselves willingly to that projection. Let me love you into wholeness, they say. Let me prove my worth. But projections once formed don't dissolve. The man becomes a sacrificial role. The illusion snaps inevitably, and the man becomes the villain, not because he changed, but because the fantasy never existed. Jung said love without awareness is possession, and so, both sexes unwittingly dance with shadows. The illusions keep repeating until someone asks the hardest question. Could I be at fault for accepting this projection? To blame the other is easy. To hold the mirror to your own longing is terrifying. Men who don't integrate their own feminine, who run from vulnerability, who refuse to see their own emptiness, will chase women's projections. They volunteer to be chosen. They volunteer to be illusions. Fear of loss outweighs fear of falseness. They invest in the person she imagines, not in themselves. Jung didn't hand out easy roadmaps. He handed out responsibility. He demanded men sit alone in silence, listen to the whisper that says you need her to be enough. That whisper fights tooth and nail to survive. It says, you're incomplete. You can't stand without her. But individuation teaches the opposite. It whispers danger. You may never perform again. But the payoff? Freedom. Freedom from needing her, from needing applause. Freedom from performance. Freedom to stand solid in your skin. When you arrive there, something extraordinary happens. Women sense it, not because you call out for attention, receive no applause, shrivel in invisibility. No, someone who doesn't seek validation unsettles the crowd. When you stop being their script, some turn away, but some recognize not the distant caricature, but the real man. They can't control you, shape you, perform for you. You stand still, rooted, grounded, alive. That power terrifies people, so they label you distant, aloof, emotional unavailability. But beneath the phrase is truth. You're no longer malleable. You see through the charade. They can't pinpoint what's off. They just know he's not theirs to command. And so, they call it cold. But Jung reminds us, men conditioned to seek validation are spiritually sick. Phrases like, I'd do anything for her, or she's my whole world, aren't romantic. They're surrender. Love is not the unwillingness to carry your own soul. Love is choosing to carry your soul and still valuing the presence of another. The men who need women to complete themselves will always lose when the other can't bear their burden. When she drops that weight, and she will, the man feels betrayed. But the betrayal isn't hers. It's an opportunity to wake up, because true work was never hers. It was always yours. At that crossroads, you can pick bitterness or awakening. You can point fingers, or you can go inside. Jung would demand, turn inward, confront emptiness, walk toward your broken parts until they're reclaimed. Only then does it end. Because here's the final truth. The woman you're searching for, she's the reflection of parts of you you deny. Until you face those parts, every connection is fantasy. Every relationship is a transaction. But when you integrate your own feminine, when you learn to carry your own soul, you stop chasing. You stop performing. You simply stand. That clarity becomes magnetic. You don't attract fantasy. You attract truth. Real women who won't ask you to perform, won't inundate you with declarations, won't expect you to fulfill some mythic role. They've done their own work too. They've met their shadows, faced their animus, and they stand before you whole. In that meeting, there's no desperate thrum, no clinging, No roles, just humans meeting. Not masks, not projections, not games, just honesty, authenticity. Jung said this kind of love is rare and dangerous. It demands nothing, but gives everything. It's born of freedom, not need. Most men will never taste this. They'll settle for fantasies, for scripts, for applause, because confronting themselves is too terrifying. But if you dare, abandon the false layers, stand alone, strip away the need for approval, someday you'll find yourself at the edge of something breathtaking. That's where you become yourself. Women become partners, not prizes, mirrors, not mothers, allies, not saviors. And you love them not because you need them, but because you choose them from a place of strength, wholeness, and integrity. Jung didn't give you directions. He gave you warnings. Warnings that if you never deal with your unconscious, you'll be a puppet to others' fantasies. But he also gave you a challenge. Walk the path. Stop blaming women for roles you volunteered for. Stop seeking wholeness in someone else's reflection. Stop waiting to be chosen, because the man who chooses himself, the man who chooses his own soul, is the man fantasy cannot touch, performance cannot bend, projection cannot define. He becomes the author of his life. And if this message touches something deep in you, if you feel it resonate, don't let it be a momentary hit. Let it be fuel. Fire yourself up. Share this truth. Invite other men to break the cycle, to walk the path, to wake up together, one man at a time. Then close your eyes, take a breath, and ask, am I ready to meet myself? There's a strange silence that follows awakening, a kind of sacred stillness that surrounds you when the illusions finally die, and you're left alone. Not lonely, but truly alone, for the first time. No roles to play, no mask to wear, no script to recite. Just you, and the breath in your chest, and the pulse of something ancient whispering through your veins. It's disorienting at first. You spent so long trying to become someone for someone else, trying to fit the mold, to live up to the imagined man in her eyes, that now, stripped of all that, you hardly recognize your own reflection. But this is where it begins. The real journey. Not the fantasy of being chosen, not the addiction to being desired, but the terrifying, beautiful climb into your own soul. And you'll find that this path, this silent road, won't welcome you with comfort. It won't flood you with support. It won't give you instant peace. What it will do is confront you. Again and again. It will drag every part of you tried to bury out into the light. That moment, when you realize no one is coming to save you, that's the moment you start to become dangerous. Not dangerous in the way the world fears, but in the way illusions fear. You become immune to the lies. You stop dancing to unspoken rules. You stop apologizing for existing outside the frame. You begin to walk differently, speak differently. The men around you, some will admire it, but most won't understand, because they're still trapped in the loop, still molding themselves to fit, still living off the echo of someone else's affirmation. You'll watch them perform. You'll hear it in their voices, the subtle desperation, the quiet hope that someone out there will finally see them. And you'll want to shake them. You'll want to scream, "You're enough. You've always been enough." But not like this. Not when you're trying to be what she wants instead of what you are. And the women, some will be drawn to you like moths to flame, not because of your looks, your words, your charm, but because of what they feel. They feel the difference, the groundedness, the refusal to be moved by fantasy, and it unsettles them, it excites them, it enrages them. Some will try to test it, poke and prod and pull, to see if the man standing before them is real, or just another illusion with better packaging. But when you don't react, when you don't bend, when you don't perform, they'll either fall away or they'll awaken. And those who awaken, they're rare. They don't need you to fix them, praise them, complete them. They've walked through their own fire. They've danced with their own shadows. And when they look at you, they're not seeing an actor. They're not projecting a fantasy. They're seeing a man who has chosen himself. And they show up not to complete, but to create. With you, beside you. No masks, no myths, just presence, just truth. But don't think this makes the path easier. If anything, it makes it lonelier. Because the more you see, the more alone you become. You'll walk into rooms and feel the weight of pretense. You'll sit in conversations and hear the unspoken longing beneath every word. You'll see men shrinking themselves to avoid conflict, women inflating themselves to avoid vulnerability. Everyone dancing, spinning, pretending not to be terrified of being truly seen. And you'll ache, not for them, but for the version of you that once believed in the dance. The version that thought if you just loved enough, gave enough, proved enough, she'd stay. That version had to die. It wasn't wrong. It was just incomplete. It didn't know that love without self is just performance. That desire without presence is just projection. That intimacy without inner wholeness is just dependency, dressed in romance's clothing. So you stopped playing. You stopped chasing. You started choosing. And when you did, the world shifted. You no longer needed her to see you to believe in your worth. You no longer feared her rejection because you stopped rejecting yourself. That's what most don't understand. Rejection only hurts when you secretly believe it confirms your deepest fear. But when you've confronted that fear, when you've looked it dead in the eye and said, I am still here, even if no one claps, rejection loses its power. That's why you walk differently now. Why you speak with pause, with depth, with stillness. You're not rushing to prove. You're not scrambling to please. You've become the storm and the calm inside it. And those who are still living in the fog, they don't know what to do with you. You don't ask for approval. You don't flinch when they withhold affection. You don't twist yourself into something they can control. You've stopped being predictable. And that's the most terrifying kind of man a woman possessed by fantasy can face. Because she can't mold you, can't guilt you, can't seduce you with need. She has to meet you, as she is, or not at all. And you? You're no longer waiting. You're not scanning the horizon for the one. You've learned the art of being the one, for yourself. You've become your own source, your own anchor, your own mirror. You've stopped searching for someone to complete the story and started writing your own. You laugh more now, not because life is easier, but because you finally get the joke. The joke that all this time, you thought you had to become someone else to be loved, when the truth was, love was never about becoming. It was about being whole, being honest, being here. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere out there, someone is on the same path, stripping away the myths, confronting the lies, reclaiming the pieces they gave away to be chosen. And if your paths cross, it won't be fireworks, it won't be obsession, it will be something quieter, realer, a glance that doesn't measure, a presence that doesn't demand, a connection that doesn't complete, but reflects. Two people, no masks, no scripts, just truth. But even if that never comes, you're no longer afraid, because the love you found on this path, the love for yourself, the love of truth, the love of wholeness, that's enough, more than enough. It's everything. And that, finally, is freedom.